Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. Welcome to a special edition of Speak Up. I'm Representative Kevin Avard, and I have a gubernatorial candidate, Mr. John BABIARZ.
You got it right first time.
BABIARZ, okay. Okay, well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And I know that you're campaigning for the Libertarian, on the Libertarian ticket.
Yes.
And welcome to the show, and I have a number of questions for you. First one, though, is how's your campaign doing?
They're not including me in the debates, which makes it difficult, but I'm working the Facebook crowd, getting my viewpoints out there, talking with people one-on-one.
What does it mean to be a Libertarian in the state of New Hampshire and working on that side? What are some of the issues that a Libertarian believes in versus a Republican versus a Democrat?
I would say the important thing is responsibility and liberty. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Mm-hmm. And as a Libertarian, I believe in fiscal responsibility, also moral responsibility. You take care of your own, you take care of yourself. And that way you're not a burden on society. And on civil liberties, you're free to do with whatever you want with your own body. That's your property. If you don't own your own property, then you don't own yourself and you're not free.
Right, versus the government telling you what to do with your body.
Or what type of health care you can have or can't have. I should be able to go into contract freely with anybody without force.
So that's a novel idea to many people. Geez, liberty. What is that all about? That's interesting that we have to re-explain that over and over and over again. But forever vigilant, that's what we're trying to be here. There are a number of questions that I did have, but we were talking off camera a little bit about the constitutional amendment that's coming up. And you have a long history with this whole question on the ballot. Number one, do you support CACR 26?
Most definitely.
Okay. Why?
Why? Because if you look at the legislature, they're the ultimate people's representative. Everybody's accountable to the people, or should be. Mm-hmm. Our Constitution says it in Article 8 that documents must be open and that all magistrates are accountable to the people, that all records are open to us and accountable. The legislature can impeach the governor. The legislature can impeach the judges. The governor cannot impeach a legislator. They cannot impeach the court. The court cannot impeach a legislator, nor can it impeach the governor. So the ultimate power resides in the legislature.
Which is the power of the people.
That it is.
So all government derives its authority from the people.
That is correct.
A lot of people, I'm just having talked with a ton of people, they just, for some reason, it escapes them that their government really, you can fight City Hall because City Hall gets its power from you.
That is correct.
So back onto the discussion. I'm not trying to lecture. I'm just...
People need to hear these points. Right. It's clear and concise. If you understand it, then you understand where your liberties are. You understand your role in relationship to the government. Right out of the bat, New Hampshire Constitutional says, men enter society for... I can't remember the Constitution word for word as Dan Itzy does.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's an encyclopedia.
But the concept that is when we freely enter society, there's certain expectations, and if those are not satisfied, then the whole contract's null and void.
Right.
Very key point.
A very interesting point. Back to CACR 26. You told me an interesting story, which just I thought was rather interesting about a speeding ticket or a ticket. and your relationship to CA and how that relates to CACR 26. And I'm thinking that was beautiful, but the history behind your understanding. You had a ticket at one point.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about well, you repeat the story if you
Sure. I'll give you a little history and background on that. When I first moved to the state in 1993, there was a man named Ken Blevins, and he always tackled the court, and that was his big thing, 73A.
Ken Blevins, is he from Concord? Bow, New Hampshire. I used to hunt his property.
Okay. And at the time, you know, I was a new activist, and I said, Ken, you're in the court all the time. And I'd never been in the court, all right? After a while, it's like, okay, this is the game we play. I'm prepared. I have no fear of the courts. I am going to go and do whatever I'm going to do in the court system because, first of all, they can't disbar me. I have rights. They're either going to honor my rights or we're going to have a real serious discussion of even if the government exists anymore. Because remember, the first part of the Constitution says, if they don't follow their side of the contract, why should I follow my side? All right. So anyway, 73A, you always talked about it. Well, in my own case, you know, I read the Constitution and I always said, 73A, that is wrong. There's something wrong with this. As time and talking with other people, I realized what was wrong. The court was operating independently, in contrary to everything else in the Constitution. And then I found out the history of it, how they snuck it through. They really didn't tell the people what's really going on. And so they upset over 200 years of tradition and proper operating of our government with this little thing in 1978.
Which I find interesting. We actually, in Representative Itzy's committee, we actually saw the original ballot. And at the time when it was explained, according to Representative Itzy, that it was already understood that the legislature would have the authority to change rules. But now it seems very important to introduce that language because it's turned into a cancer. From what I understand, and I looked at the ballot, and that last line was not on the ballot. I saw it with my own eyes. That's so promulgate, the rules so promulgated shall have the force
And effect of law.
and effect of law. So a judge who is unelected can make a rule that has the effect of law, and you have no power to change that. That's not how our government has been. Why have a legislature? Just have a judge make up his own rules. That seems to be not, people just don't realize that that's how it exists now. That language is still on the ballot, but now they've introduced more language to clarify the rights of the people. And that's why I support CACR 26, because the power derives from the people.
So I'll start with my case.
Right.
Traffic violation. Under the changes in the law in 1989, Rule 2.5A said any citation that's issued must be presented to the court for a case within 15 days. So when a police officer writes you a citation, within 15 days it has to be at the court, filed as a case. Well, what happened is I had a citation. There was a due date on it, 30 days out, because they're assuming you're going to mail it in, plead guilty or not guilty, whatever. But that's a 30-day window. But the court rules said 15-day window. And so when we went for the hearing, I wrote several motions. One of the motions was motion to dismiss. It's out of time limit, Rule 2.5A. Now, this was in 2009. And the crazy thing about it is, all that time, since 1989 to 2009, no lawyer ever picked up on that. All these people that were represented by lawyers in traffic cases, not one lawyer picked up on that. I would be ashamed if I was a lawyer that I could have got my client, you know, if nothing else, to have it corrected sooner. There's something wrong with the profession. They allow sloppiness like this. This is a court rule.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through. The judge says, Mr. BABIARZ, you are correct, but we're going to have the trial anyhow. We've got to ignore this rule. It's like the Fight Club. Rule number one, we make up the rules. And so here I'm saying, wait a minute, I followed your rules. In good intention, follow the rules you set forward. And now you're saying we're going to ignore that. For what, revenue? For $100? Is that what you really want? And let me tell you something. Supreme Court case cost them more than that.
Interesting. So I thought part of the interesting part of your story was, who was your attorney at?
Well, I did it pro se at the district court level.
Right.
But my attorney for the Supreme Court case was William O'Brien.
William, that rings a bell.
Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House. And how did you fare at that time?
Well, let's just say the brief that Speaker William O'Brien did was an excellent brief. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of input on that and a few other people, and the court ruled against us.
Interesting.
Because I caught them on their rules. So they issued this decision on April 1st, 2010. And since then, it's been cited, that decision has been cited in some other Supreme Court cases. So obviously, it was an important decision that the court made, really doing it. But they also changed the rule afterwards, quietly. We didn't hear any fanfare. We didn't hear any open to the public thing. It was changed. And the reason I know it was changed, I had another friend through, let's see if they still have that on the court rules. No, they changed it. They made it more obscure.
So what you're saying is that they can make rules, and then they can change the rules, and you really don't know where justice lies.
And they can ignore the rules.
How will CACR 26 make that difference?
I think you're going to see, first of all, you're going to have other eyes watching it. And so they're going to say, time out, you can't change this, you're forgetting this. But more importantly, I think the family court. Where's the oversight in family court? You have guardian ad litem who's accountable to who? Well,
as of this year, I believe that the Supreme Court gave them quasi-immunity.
Quasi, that's nice.
Right.
That's a nice word. That's comfortable.
Well, I find that rather interesting. So really, a guardian ad litem, it can be an attorney or a non-attorney, representing the child, the interest of the child, can misrepresent that child, lie in court, and not follow any proper procedures, and they still, you cannot go and sue them for misrepresenting, for lying, or for doing a bad job. A police officer, however, well, woe unto you if you lie in court, or if you do the very same thing. A guardian ad litem has more safety net than a police officer, and I don't think that's proper. But why were they given this quasi-immunity? Why did the court allow guardian ad litems this cover? What? I don't know. Okay, so you understand there's a problem here.
There is a problem.
To my viewers, the guardian ad litem is supposed to be an independent liaison, if you will, or representative of a child in a custody battle, or and is supposed to have no skin in the game. They're supposed to represent that child. And it seems, and each case is supposed to have a $1,000 limit. I've seen cases where that limit has gone up to $40,000. In the Vandenberg case, 30 some odd to almost $40,000. So, and he still hasn't seen his child. He's committed no crime. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. But as a governor, how would you make differences? Would you ask for certain legislations to be introduced? What are some of the things that you would want to do as a governor to make other changes?
Well, I believe in an open process, that everything should be above board, that people can see. As governor, and people have this impression that the governor is some kind of dictator that can wave a magic wand. Mm-hmm. No, the governor only has one purpose. Well, there's a few defined, but really one true purpose. And as the word says, governor, is to keep a hold on the legislature to not go too crazy. Okay? Now, if they really want to go crazy, they can override the governor, and that's fine. But it's like, somebody has to sit back and say, wait a minute, there's too much passion going on, and the governor's your governor. Really, hold you back.
And the veto is.
And the veto is the mechanism to do that.
And the executive council holds the governor in check.
Yes, but not on bills.
Right.
but on other things, on contracts, so that the governor can't go give money to his cronies, because you have the executive council there. Appointments is another one, the executive council. So there's a check on the governor from gaining too much power, and it's a throwback to the Revolutionary War. But I think it's an important part of our government here in New Hampshire. It doesn't allow a governor to act like a dictator, to
stack the deck.
Stack the deck, if you will. Yes.
Right. Interesting. So. You know, that one of my biggest issues this year, and I'm hearing a lot of misinformation, how that that the people that support CACR 26 are extremists. I mean, I don't know how they get there. I don't know where their logic, and these are people in the State House. These are legislatures that are saying these are a bunch of extremists. But I saw how this all came about, and I saw how all 5 Supreme Court justices supported this language, because it's their language. I think they've seen the writing on the wall. Because as a legislator, I wanted to wipe out 73A, which allowed the judges to make rules that have the effect of law. Well, we have a compromise, and that is, you know, with the legislature introducing bills if they want to challenge a rule, providing it doesn't violate the Constitution. We now can challenge some of these rules. My biggest rule is 1.2. It's a craw. It just bugs the heck out of me. Waiver of rules. It's kind of a blank check, isn't it? Yeah. It's funny. It's comical, but then they'll turn around and they'll point right at the legislator. This is your fault because you gave us this authority. I don't get it. So what are some of the other issues that you want to talk about as far as New Hampshire? What about the income tax? That's another constitutional question on the ballot.
I am going to be supporting yes on one also. But I know that talking with some well-respected legislators that the New Hampshire government really doesn't have the authority to tax on income. Because the way our Constitution is written, it tells you what you can tax. And I think they step the bounds a little bit. Let's go back to statewide property tax, which is an interesting thing. Nobody's ever taken that to court on its constitutionality by the way it's implemented. Mm-hmm. The statewide property tax, we have a constitutional provision that all the property has to be evaluated every 5 years.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the problem with the statewide property tax. It's based on your valuation. But we know the market shifts. Now, which part of the year you do it? Let's say Sunapee does it in year 1 and Grafton does it year 5 and there's a market crash in between. Is that fair and equitable, which is another part of our Constitution? No, it can't be. So unless all properties is assessed at the same time, it cannot be fair and equitable, which fails the constitutional test.
Now, if you want to challenge your property tax, where do you go?
You have 3 places. One is Department of Revenue Administration. They have a special hearing. The other is you could go to district court, or you can go to Supreme Court.
Is there a board is it the?
It's part of DRA. There's a board.
Is it the BLTA?
BLTA, yes.
Now the BLTA can tell you, or if you want to appeal the value because of the view tax or lack of view tax or the potential view tax or whatever. This guy's got a better view than me, and it's a very subjective, it's quite a controversy. My taxes shouldn't be as high as his because he's got a better view, or you go to this board. And this board will tell you you're either out to lunch or you're going to stick to what your tax is, or you actually have a legitimate case. And this board gets its power not from the legislature, but from the Supreme Court, and has no oversight of the people.
That is correct.
I find that alarming.
It is.
So you go to a court that has no accountability to the people regarding your property tax. How do you appeal it?
Well, again, your choice is to either go there or go through the district court. But then again, you're right. There's no accountability to the people. once you get into the court system, these are all judicial appointees. And as we're looking at it, some judges adhere to Constitution, but a lot of it is no longer your constitutional rights in play. It's more of, what is the policy? Claremont, not what's constitutional, what is the policy?
So instead of acting judicially, they're acting politically.
Yes.
And that's not their role.
No. Remember, the same place they quote about cherishing school, Article 83A, states right in there, monopolies are harmful to society. When you have government that has the ability to take money under threat of force, take that money and distribute it to whatever master plan they think of, okay? There's something wrong with this picture. They're creating a de facto monopoly because they're taking your money. Whereas in a normal exchange, people willingly exchange money. Otherwise, they would not do business with each other. There'd be competition that would gear themselves. To me, what I'm really excited about is school choice. That's long overdue.
Right. We recently had Kate Baker on here. She was a very big proponent of the charter schools and school choice, and as well as I am. I think that the schools definitely need some competition. We're falling behind nations after, we're, what, 25th in the world now as far as our standing. And so school choice, I think, is a good policy for everybody. There's another question on the ballot. Question number 3, and I know good people are really arguing over this. I'm yes on 1 and 2. I'm not so sure about 3. It is government of the people, for the people, by the people, and it belongs to them, and so they should have the choice to have a constitutional convention. The only reason I would want one would be to increase the size of the Senate, and I don't think the Senate is big enough. I think we had 1,800 bills, maybe 2,000 bills last year. 24 people could not do justice to those bills. I find that incredible. When you have 400 people in the House reviewing, in committee, all these bills, you just can't give it enough view. And I would like to see a larger Senate.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. If the Senate and the legislature was committed to liberty, they wouldn't be passing more bills. They'd be repealing a lot of bills.
Okay, I can agree with you there.
When they do that and get government small enough to drown in the bathtub, which I will assist one way or the other, then we have a government that's more responsive to the people. And we don't need to pass all these laws. Because if you look at a lot of the laws that pass, there are, well, you could probably separate in 3 groups. One is the liberty activists that said, no, we don't need knife bills anymore. You know, that we have responsible people. We don't need all these gun laws. We have responsible people. We have a punishment system if they violate people's rights with guns. We have that in place. Why do we have to have all these little nuances? Mm-hmm. Okay? The biggest thing I think the legislature should do is really clean up the liquor laws. Some of them are so archaic. I think it's hurting our restaurant business in New Hampshire. You know, some of the fees we charge just to put out new beer, it's outrageous. But anyway, a lot of that needs to be cleared up. Another part, bills that people pass are technical corrections. I don't think there's too many of those. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the third is for the people that like to grow government. Okay, those are the ones that should be squashed pretty good in committee. Right. Okay, if a lot of those are in the House has a lot of members do it, but the Senate should really. And I think the Senate's got to take the total picture of it, and it's like, okay, let's go through this like our senators in the federal government should have been doing, taking the long-term approach. That's why they have the power of treaty. They're looking over this. That's why, you know, things like the income tax, they say, no, this would kill us because we know the impact, because we're supposed to be, quote, wiser. We're supposed to be more deliberative of this, because the House has already knuckled it down with the massive of most of the community. So now let's see how does it fit in. And they said, no, we don't need that.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase that they're more deliberative.
They should be, but yeah.
I'm taking issue with that. That's fine. Well, you know, this isn't the Dan Itzy show, but in his committee, that's what they do, is they review old laws. I think it's the reconstitution of or recodification of Constitution law. That's his committee. And what they do is they review the laws that are on the books that are either antiquated or that violate the Constitution. And they get, they bring it up to, hey, let's get rid of this law. This doesn't make any sense anymore, or something.
That's an important function.
And it hasn't been done for a long time.
Because if it's not done there, the only way it's going to be done is through the court system, where the judge has to make a law unconstitutional. And that's a high bar to reach. I've reached it, by the way.
Right.
In my case against the, as a Libertarian Party against the Democratic Party, or actually Secretary of State. You always sue the Secretary of State on election laws. But they had this thing where they could, the statewide database can only be given to the Republicans or the Democrats, nobody else. And I took them to court, and it actually had the law thrown out at Merrimack Superior Court.
Interesting. Well, I didn't know that. No. So, okay, so we're kind of wrapping it up here a little bit. What do you want the people of New Hampshire to know? What are the most important couple of final thoughts that you want to give the viewers? Yes on 1, yes on 2. Did we answer 3?
No, I didn't really answer 3, and I'm going to answer 3.
Yeah.
It is people's right to vote every 10 years on a constitutional convention. I believe that the people are not ready for it, a constitutional convention. I believe the legislature, very few understand the Constitution. The Constitution must be taken as a whole, a full-flowing document. I think too many people are distracted by special interests, by not taking a more thorough look that they did during the Age of Reason. And so I would fear that there'd be too much political influence from lobbyists, and that shouldn't be in a constitutional convention.
When would that change? I don't see where that would change.
I think people are starting to become more aware of our Constitution. I'm really encouraged by a lot of young people, especially within the Ron Paul movement, that have absorbed the Constitution, read the Federalist Papers, and are starting to get it. A lot of people thought, well, this is our government, they get a little civics, and they move on, not realizing every bit is very important. And I think people realize, because our government is at the fiscal cliff, that something has to be done. On the federal level, I don't know if we can fix it. But in New Hampshire, I think by having alternate currencies that are constitutional and preparing New Hampshire to be back to its independent, rugged spirit that founded New Hampshire, I think we'll fare a lot better than those states that are always having a handout to the federal government to bail them out.
Yeah. All right. How do people get in touch with you to help you out with your campaign?
They can contact johnbabiarz.com. They can contact me, Facebook, John Babiarz.
Perfect. All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Speak Up, and thank the viewers for joining us for a special edition of Speak Up, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
And we hope to have you again, maybe even after the elections, to talk about the fallout, if you will.
Sure will.
All right. Well, until next week, thank you for watching Speak Up. And again, this is a special edition, and if you'd like to support the show, please email me at speakupnh@gmail.com or write me a letter at Speakup, 68 Barbiarz Trail, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03063. Until next week. Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.